Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Maxace Beetle 2.0. Where's the 1.0? I have no idea. I didn't know that they made this knife, but I'm sure you're asking, what is so special about that? It just looks like a knife, right? Okay, so he's gonna say the silver twill, right? That is a really cool thing. We don't see the silver carbon fiber or the Alatex or the silver twill or whatever you want to call it. We don't see this very often. I love this material, but no, that's not the special feature. Oh, it's a lockback, right? That's just weird, right? Haha. We don't see many lockbacks in the modern knife world. It's part of it, right? Let's disengage this. Wow, that is really smooth. Okay, so this is what I thought, and I carried this for maybe a day and a half, and I thought, yeah, it's neat. Okay, they made a modern backlock that has bearings in it, so that makes it a little easier to operate. And I continued to carry this knife and just assume that and enjoy the action, right? Because it is a lot easier to actuate whether you do two-handed or whether you do one-handed. It wasn't until I had finished carrying it and I kept looking at it. I kept looking at this area right here and thinking, those have to be bearings. Those have to be bearings, right? It's too smooth. It's way too smooth. I mean, it's smooth even for bearings. Like, my God, that is smooth. This is on phosphor bronze washers. I even got in there and looked, right? I'll show you. I'll put a picture up on camera. This sucker is on phosphor bronze That is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You always have, groups of people saying, for that much money, it should be bearings. And those people don't know what they're talking about. If you're the type of person who says that, you can get bearings and knives that cost $20. You can also get PB or nylon washers and knives that cost thousands of dollars. It depends on the idea behind the knife, where it is intended to be used, the preferences of the maker or the OEM, the designer, right, and the intended audience. Honestly, it just comes down to preference. Typically, with bearings, you get a smoother operating knife, but it doesn't do such a great job of keeping debris out of the pivot. With nylon and phosphor bronze, they do a much better job of keeping debris out of the pivot. Not as smooth as bearings. Nylon tends to be a little closer. Phosphor bronze, not really, but again, a lot of people prefer it because of its ability to keep crap out of the pivot. In this case, this essentially makes... Listen, if every phosphor bronze knife operated like this, and yeah, I'm sure you're asking, does it have blade play? No! You have to take my word for it. There's no blade play in this thing. If all knives utilizing phosphor bronze washers were this smooth, bearings would be obsolete. This is as smooth as I've ever experienced a knife with pivot action. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, admittedly, I've handled some custom knives that were like really, that next micro step up for sure. Like that's definitely the case. But in this territory, yeah, this is laughing at bearings. This is like, I can do exactly what you can do, but I can do it better, and I can keep debris out of the pivot. Now, obviously, the downside to this is that it is a lockback. There's an extra step there. But, hey, Maxace, can you do this with, like, all of your knives? Because, I mean, this is amazing. I could not believe that that's what was in there. So I wanted to talk about that right away because that is a super interesting element of a knife that is pretty unassuming. I mean, this is kind of a sleeper knife. I'll probably... That's a good opportunity for clickbait. I'll probably put something like that in a thumbnail. He admitted to it! Off to Reddit. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and measure this guy. This really isn't a complicated knife. This won't be, an extensive review. Overall length is actually coming in. This is a full-size knife, 8¼ inches. Blade length is coming in at about 3.8. Good size blade, 3.5 inches of cutting edge. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5, full-size knife, right? Just not nearly as robust a profile. Definitely longer than something like the 80-20.5. How about up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca? I guess we're doing these out of order today. More similar to the height profile of the Hogue Deca, just longer and definitely thicker. And then finally, let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Okay, I want to point this out. The cutting edge, it's got superior cutting edge while having an ergonomic profile that is almost as open as the PM2. I mean, this is super, super open. How's the action? Well, like I said, for a lockback, which is not normally what we see, right? A lot of people, I'm sure, are looking at this right now and going, why make exactly this, but like with a thumb stud or with a flipper? I agree. You could turn it into a frame locker. A lot of people are like, no, they can do both, right? It doesn't have to be like, if one version of it exists that I don't like, then it's a catastrophe. Or you just buy the version that makes sense to you, right? So this lockback version is fine, and admittedly, lockbacks are super strong. Personally, I'll sacrifice some of that, in my opinion, unnecessary additional strength that I don't use. I'm talking about to me, and I'll take an operating system, a means of deployment that just makes it more convenient for me. But that being said, just wheeling this thing out is pretty easy. Can you flick it? Probably, if you get your thumb in exactly the right place. The problem is that there's not a lot of room in this little slot. Had they cut this a little lower and made the oval a little bit longer and bigger, sure. Also, they definitely should have cut it out on the other side. Why do you guys do this? Companies, knife companies, why do you do this? Why do you hide the hole from us? We want to put our fingers in here. Let us put our fingers in these holes. If you put a hole here, we want to put our fingers in it. Why do you not cut it? I don't understand. But they didn't do it. This has room for improvement, and I sure hope they do, because there's a lot of positive implications with this design, right? But can you wheel it out? Yeah, that's obviously how they intended for you to do it, right? Just only if you're right-handed. Left-handed people, they were like, no left-handed people. But if you're right-handed, that's exactly how they intended for you to wheel it out. The pivot action itself is good. Deploying it is not incredibly satisfying, but it is easy, right? You have to dig just a little bit to engage with that little oval there, but it works just fine. The action, again, the actual pivot action is wildly impressive for phosphor bronze washers, right? Bunchman's been doing it for years. Okay. Okay there, Bella. But anyways, let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. People get so mad at me when I predict what they're going to say. And then the alternate route that they take is they're like, can you just stop? Can you just stop taking time out of videos to guess what people are thinking? Oh, God! Tell me that I predicted what you wanted to say without telling me that I predicted that you wanted to say. That's immediately what I think. I'm going to keep doing that. This is my thing. This is my natural personality, right? And you're here. You're still watching. You must, a part of you must like it, right? A part of you must really secretly enjoy it. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It is a little bit on the chubby side. Not bad. It's also contoured, which is really nice to the touch. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Yeah, it's a little longer than the Para 3, a little shorter than the PM2. Not quite as tall as either. This was a really easy knife to carry. Materials. Love these materials. We have a deep tumbled or acidy tumbled. It's not a blasted, but a dark titanium frame. And we have Alatex silver twill scales. I love this material. I love it. A lot of people consider it too flashy. Whatever. I don't think that there's a different version of this knife offered. There should be. We shouldn't, make it to where it's just one version of things. I think this would look great with black carbon fiber or whatever, right? A budget version of this knife with, maybe just all scale and then a little steel liner or whatever, would be also great. But I love this material. I think it looks really, really nice. And I don't know why it went away. It's not a cheap material. Definitely. It's going to be more expensive. I think slightly more expensive than your standard carbon fiber of the same quality. But this is really good looking stuff. I like it a lot. It's also a strong material too. And then we have the steel backspacer. This pocket clip, I believe, is titanium. It's just stamped for whatever reason. Fine, whatever, right? It would be cool to have a milled clip. Blade, flat ground, tumbled, Magna Cut. At what HRC? Every listing I can find of Maxace's recent Magna Cut is 61 to 63. I have heard of people HRC testing Maxace's Magna Cut and coming back with results that were lower, but I think those might have been from a ways back. I could be wrong. Listed HRC ranges tend to be 61 to 63. I'm going to assume that that's what this is at because these knives don't have a listing for HRC. In my very limited carrying and cutting and stuff like that, because again, I'm a design reviewer. I just carry and use these knives like regular. I don't do any extensive testing. The edge didn't fatigue in a way that would make me think this is incredibly soft stuff, which actually did happen with a Sativian one time. There was an M390 Sativian that went dull almost immediately, which is obviously an indicator for somebody like me that it's probably not very hard, right? Yeah, probably right in there. But would it surprise me if Maxace's test results came back slightly lower? No, because I don't know that Maxace has always been super duper, consistent with their HRC. I would hope that they are, and I would love to hear a recent HRC test result from MagnaCut and the other steels that they use. But it's listed on a number of different websites as 61 to 63. So I'm going to assume that that is correct, or at least mostly accurate. So those are your materials there. Let's weigh it. Probably going to be in the high 4s, low 5s. That would be my guess. Yeah, 4.7 ounces. So there you go. Did you like how I strategically increased the range to still make it look like I was really good at guessing the weight? Anyways, so let's do a hardware check on it. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I believe this is a T8. A lot of people, you guys keep reminding me that I should acknowledge that there's a T8 plus or like plus sizes between, and that's often what it actually is when like a 9 doesn't fit but an 8 is a little wobbly. You guys are correct, right? If you don't have a T8 plus, a T8 will work, but it's technically not exactly the right bit. So there you go. This is hard to implement in every single video because then I have to take time to explain it. So I've acknowledged you. If I don't say it moving forward, it's just because we're taking too long to discuss it, but it is correct, right? So if I find a way to make that a little bit shorter, I might say T8 or T8 plus would probably be more optimized and then just move on, right? So all of these appear to be that size, and then the pocket clip screws are also T8, so that's cool. Very easy to take apart and put back together as long as you have the right tools for the job. Should be good to go. I will point out, taking out the blade is as simple as removing the pivot and pushing down on the back lock. Like when I wanted to check the whether it was washers or bearings, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to take all this off. As soon as I pulled the pivot out, this sprung up and the blade just popped out. Putting it back in was unbelievably simple. Now, it is not a D-shaped pivot barrel, which on one hand is a little bit annoying because that means it can free spin, but it doesn't. The tolerances are tight enough that the friction keeps it from doing that, right? In this case, it works as a benefit because popping the pivot barrel back in there is incredibly easy because you don't have to line it up with the D barrel. In this specific case, I am actually making a case for the pivot barrel being cylindrical and not D-shaped. This was so easy to take apart. It was crazy simple. So I was very happy with that. I hate taking knives apart and putting them back together, especially when you have to hold things down, right? And you got to push this in and you got to pick the thing up and replace it with the bag and jump out of the way of the boulder, right? And then you have to say the magic words and make the symbol and draw the pentagram on the floor and light all the candles. And then it comes back together. I don't want to do all that crap. I don't want to do that. I just want to pip, clock, doop, pop. And it's done. Like that's the easiest thing. Nobody wants to screw around with that, right? So that's nice. It's very easy to take apart. Blade stock thickness. I said that this would not be an overly complicated review, and here I am making it way too long. Blade stock thickness coming in at 115 thousandths. Meat and potatoes time. Very classic knife profile. Very classic locking system. Turned into a very modern knife. This is beautifully comfortable. I don't love this all hail Civivi bill. Like, God, that sucks. But it is at least not to the 50% line, and there's so much ergonomic room on this knife, and it is so comfortable and so open in profile. It's really hard for me to complain. Why did you guys end the jimping right here? Why is the jimping mostly aesthetic, and why did you end it right here? Continue. Sometimes I'm going to want to put my thumb out here, right? But okay, all right. That's fine. It's so comfortable. It's really hard for me to complain. Fit and finish, wonderful. There's not a lot of excess embellishment going on here outside of the material for the scale. I think it looks good. We have a fully flat ground blade that is not thick to begin with. It is reasonably thin behind the edge and is made of MagnaCut with anywhere from an okay heat treat to a, wow, that's pretty great heat treat, right? This is a knife that legitimately can be taken out and used pretty hard. With the combination of phosphor bronze washers, which is more so just keeping debris out of the pivot, the back lock, and the MagnaCut blade being in that range, yeah, this is a pretty serious knife. It's not Cold Steel Triad Lock series, but this is a knife where you can just use it, right? I mean, you've got a pretty thin tip, so I'm not saying, go out and like, oh, I need to remove all the bricks out of my street with the knife. Like, no. But if you're going to use it like a knife, you can push pretty hard on this thing. You can use this thing pretty hard and not have to worry about it. This thing is definitely built to be used. It's a pretty looking tool, but it's definitely a durable tool. And the more I used it, the more I liked it. Had I known this whole time while carrying it in my incredibly simple environment that yielded no real, my testing is really more so like to get an idea of how I feel about the design, how comfortable it is to carry, how fun and easy it is to manipulate, all of that, how convenient those little tiny things are. This will definitely survive in an environment that is much more aggressive than the one I put it through, for sure. The blade is definitely thin enough to cut efficiently, but it's not so dainty that you have to be careful with it, right? Especially considering what it's made out of. Again, I wish there was some jimping up here, but there's not, so okay. We have a pretty large sharpening choil there, so that's nice. Should be easy to touch up and sharpen. The finish on the blade is like a light tumbling or media blasting. I'll actually have to look at it close in the camera here, but it should... Yeah, honestly, it looks more like a media blasting or a glass blasting than anything else, but it does look good. I like it. The Maxace logo right here just kills it for me. Maxace, I really think you guys should get rid of the Maxace letters and just take the logo and put it up here. People recognize it now, right? This on the other side, I don't know what MM36 is. Maybe, is it 36 millimeter? I don't know. But the MagnaCut, that's fine, right? But it's just like take the branding off of the right here and put it right here. It's not the worst eyesore in the world, but it is there, right? The connection with the backlock back here, this all looks great to me. Nice engagement. A little bit of raised jimping here all the way back. Looks good. Nothing looks out of place. Little titanium backspacer back here. Why did they choose to make an ambidextrous locking system and a right hand only mounting position for the pocket clip? I don't know. Maxace, you tell me. What was the idea there? For the love of God, guys. This whole thing is perfectly ambidextrous. Just mount the clip on the other side, right? Lefties, you can throw it in your left-hand pocket and have the knife facing this way. Sure, right? There's enough tension. Admittedly, it'll keep it in your pocket. But I'm not sure that you're going to enjoy manipulating it because, again, they did not cut it out for you to manipulate, right? There's a trend of right-handed people who will argue against making anything convenient for left-handed people even when it doesn't affect them. To those people, I say, shut up. That is a stupid position to take. If it doesn't affect you, then why have an opinion on it, right? It doesn't affect you at all. I have to look at an additional hole right here. But really? That makes no sense to me. The cutout being on the other side, just so that they can manipulate it the way that they want to with their dominant hand, would be convenient for them and would affect us, you, none. So I'm literally talking to like 7 deranged people total. The rest of you are totally rational, but to those 7 wackadoos out there, I don't know. Buy yourself a plate of spaghetti and go find a hole. That would be my suggestion. But yeah, Maxace, in all seriousness, I would definitely, consider in the future when you do an ambidextrous locking system to make it ambidextrous in terms of availability, ease of manipulation to both right and left-handed people and ambidextrous people. That would be a good move. In and out of the pocket, fine. Has that Loch Ness Monster bill that'll snag on things. It just will, right? It's just a matter of time, but fine. Lockup, completely and totally solid. Not a hint of blade play, up, down, left to right. No stick, no pivot lash. Nice and smooth in here, crazy, even when that lock bar tension is engaged. Decent amount of tension keeping the blade in the handle, but not an insane amount. And I'm happy for this because it makes it a lot easier to get the blade out. Not so much, let me try to whip this out. I can get the blade to move. Can you hear it clicking? There, God. It takes a lot of force to get that thing out of there. Much more than what it would take to get something like, an axis lock to release the blade, right? More tension in something like the triad lock. But again, not much. I think the weight and mass of that blade is assist. So this is pretty good. How much is this? Well, it's a lot of titanium, silver twill, Alatex, whatever, and Magna Cut. They're charging $200 for it. Is that fair? Yeah, definitely. The only thing that I wish that was different in terms of like overall quality would just be a milled clip, both because the milled clip is a little more expensive, not much. Doesn't make that much of a difference. And it wouldn't have this weird bill, right? But in terms of design changes, this cutout here needs to be on both sides. It needs to be deeper. The hole needs to be bigger, definitely. Jimping needs to be extended and functional. The pocket clip needs to be mountable on both sides. But what you have here is a good knife. If you buy this knife with all of these little, little goofies, little goofballs, if you buy this knife with these little goof ups, it's fine. This is still an excellent knife. I mean, honestly, like I would still give this knife like a low to mid A if I was grading it like a paper. This is a really, really cool knife. So yeah, this is recommendable. I like it. I hope that Maxace continues to evolve this, but more importantly, I hope that they continue to experiment with these ungodly high quality phosphor bronze washers in terms of action. Like, guys, you can do this. Like, do this on other stuff. This is so good. I love it. Please, that'd be awesome. Very recommendable knife. It'll go in my most recommended knives playlist. I really like that one. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.